In the sun-kissed glamour of Monaco's whispering dunes, legendary detective Hercule Poirot seeks a peaceful retreat. But paradise turns deadly when wealthy industrialist Sir Reginald Hargrove is found murdered, poisoned with curare, and stabbed with his own jeweled dagger amid the eerie, whispering caves. Suspects swirl. His flirtatious wife, Lady Clarissa, entangled with charming Italian playboy Count Vittorio Rossi, loyal secretary Miss Evelyn Sharp, hiding Tangier scandals, and suave Dr. Felix Laurent, with access to exotic toxins. As jealousy, blackmail, and hidden drug smuggling unravel, Poirot's little gray cells expose the killer's cunning plot, proving even whispers can't hide the truth in this Agatha Christie-inspired whodunit of betrayal and justice. Chapter 1. The Allure of the Côte d'Azur. The azure sky stretched endlessly above the Mediterranean, where the sun danced upon waves that lapped at the pristine shores of Monaco. It was here, amid the opulent villas and manicured gardens of the Côte d'Azur, that Hercule Poirot had chosen to seek a brief respite from the ceaseless demands of his profession. "Ah, George," he said to his impeccable valet as their sleek Bentley glided along the winding Corniche road. "The sea air, it invigorates the spirit. Even a detective of my caliber must occasionally permit the little gray cells to bask in tranquility." George, ever the model of discretion, nodded solemnly from the front seat. "Quite so, sir. Monaco is renowned for its restorative qualities." The car came to a halt before the grand façade of the Hôtel des Dunes Dorées, a palatial establishment perched on a cliffside, its white stone walls gleaming like polished marble under the afternoon light. As Poirot alighted, adjusting his patent leather shoes and smoothing his immaculate mustache, the hotel manager hurried forth to greet him. Monsieur Duval was a man of considerable girth, his face flushed with the enthusiasm of one who catered to the elite. His own mustache, though valiant in its curl, paled in comparison to Poirot's meticulously waxed masterpiece. "Monsieur Poirot, what an honor to welcome you to our humble abode," Duval exclaimed, bowing with a flourish that set his watch chain jangling. "Your suite is prepared, the finest, with a balcony overlooking the whispering dunes. The sands there, they murmur secrets carried by the wind from distant caves. Most poetic, non?" Poirot inclined his head graciously. "Poetic indeed, monsieur. I anticipate much pleasure in contemplating such natural wonders." Escorted to his rooms, Poirot surveyed the elegant furnishings, silk draperies in soft ivory, a writing desk of polished mahogany, and a decanter of fine cognac awaiting his approval. From the balcony, the view was sublime. The golden expanse of the dunes below, fringed by rugged cliffs that plunged into the sea. The wind, gentle yet insistent, carried faint, ethereal sounds from hidden crevices, as if the earth itself were confiding ancient tales. That evening, drawn by the allure of society, Poirot ventured to the casino adjoining the hotel. The air was thick with the scent of perfume and cigar smoke, the chandeliers casting a kaleidoscope of light upon the green baize tables. Roulette wheels spun with hypnotic precision, and the murmur of bets placed in hushed tones filled the room. Poirot, attired in his customary evening dress, settled at a quiet corner table with a glass of sirop de grenadine, his sharp eyes surveying the players with the acuity of a hawk. Among the throng, one group commanded particular attention. At the baccarat table sat Sir Reginald Hargrove, a burly Englishman whose florid complexion bespoke a life of indulgence. His voice boomed across the room as he wagered recklessly, his thick fingers drumming impatiently on the felt. Beside him lounged his wife, Lady Clarissa, a woman of striking beauty, perhaps 20 years his junior. Her gown of shimmering emerald silk clung to her figure, and her dark hair was swept into an elegant chignon adorned with diamonds. Yet her laughter, light and musical, seemed directed not at her husband, but at the man across from her, Count Vittorio Rossi. The Count was the epitome of continental charm, tall, olive-skinned, with a pencil-thin mustache and eyes that sparkled with mischief. An Italian aristocrat of dubious fortune, he leaned close to Lady Clarissa, his whispers eliciting blushes and giggles that drew a scowl from Sir Reginald. "Confound it, man," the industrialist growled at the dealer, though his glare was fixed elsewhere. "Double the stake." Not far off, hovering like a shadow, was Miss Evelyn Sharp, Sir Reginald's secretary. A mousy woman in her 30s, with wire-rimmed spectacles and a sensible gray dress, she clutched a leather briefcase to her chest as if it contained state secrets. Her gaze flitted nervously between her employer and the flirtatious tableau, her lips pursed in evident disapproval. Completing the circle was Dr. Félix Laurent, a French physician of refined demeanor, seated alone at the roulette wheel. His silver hair and aquiline features lent him an air of quiet authority, and he placed his bets with methodical precision, his medical bag resting unobtrusively at his feet. He glanced occasionally toward the Hargrove party, his expression inscrutable, as if diagnosing some hidden ailment. Poirot sipped his drink slowly, his mind cataloguing these observations. The tensions were palpable, the wife's wandering affections, the husband's simmering jealousy, the secretary's vigilant unease, the doctor's detached scrutiny. And the Count, he was the catalyst, stirring the pot with his easy smiles. Human nature, Poirot mused to himself. It is ever the same. Even in paradise, the serpent lurks. As the night deepened, the casino's glamour took on a sharper edge. Sir Reginald rose abruptly, his chair scraping the floor, and strode toward the doors with Miss Sharp in tow. Lady Clarissa lingered, her hand brushing the Count's sleeve in farewell. Dr. Laurent, pocketing a modest win, departed with a nod to no one in particular. Poirot remained, content to watch the wheel spin once more. The Côte d'Azur had welcomed him, but already the little gray cells sensed that this holiday might not be as restful as intended. Chapter 2. Whispers on the Wind. The morning sun rose over the Mediterranean like a golden sovereign, casting its benevolent rays upon the whispering dunes. Hercule Poirot, having enjoyed a breakfast of café au lait and croissants in his suite, felt an inexplicable urge to explore the natural curiosity that had lent the beach its name. "George," he declared, as his valet assisted him into a lightweight linen suit, "today I shall commune with nature. The dunes, they call to me with their mysterious voices." "Very good, sir," George replied, handing Poirot his ebony cane with a silver handle. "Shall I accompany you?" "Non, mon ami. Solitude is the companion I seek this morn. But do ensure my tisane is prepared upon my return. The mint, it soothes the digestion." With that, Poirot descended the hotel's marble staircase and ventured out through the terraced gardens. The path wound downward, bordered by oleanders in full bloom, their pink petals fluttering like confetti in the gentle breeze. As he approached the sands, the air grew warmer, infused with the salty tang of the sea and the faint, earthy scent of sun-baked rock. The dunes themselves were a marvel, undulating waves of fine gold, sculpted by wind and tide into graceful curves that stretched for perhaps a kilometer along the cliff base. Here and there, dark openings in the rock face hinted at caves, from which emanated the peculiar whispering sounds, soft, sibilant murmurs that rose and fell with the gusts, as if the very stones were gossiping about forgotten scandals. Poirot paused at the edge of the beach, removing his shoes to feel the warm grains between his toes. It was an uncharacteristic indulgence, but the detective permitted himself such small liberties on holiday. "Ah, the symmetry of nature," he murmured, gazing at the pristine expanse. Yet even here, disorder lurks beneath the surface. He began his stroll, cane tucked under his arm, his egg-shaped head tilted attentively to catch the whispers. They were indeed eerie, a low, continuous susurration that might be mistaken for distant voices, carrying fragments of words that dissolved before comprehension. Not far ahead, reclining on a striped chaise longue beneath a fringed parasol, was Lady Clarissa Hargrove. She wore a flowing white beach robe over a swimsuit, her bare legs extended languidly, a wide-brimmed hat shading her exquisite features. Beside her, kneeling in the sand with the casual elegance of a Renaissance statue, was Count Vittorio Rossi. He was clad in a silk shirt unbuttoned to reveal a tanned chest, and he leaned close, his dark eyes fixed on hers with unmistakable ardor. Poirot, approaching with deliberate slowness, caught snatches of their conversation above the dunes' murmurs. "My dear Clarissa, in Italy we understand passion as the French understand wine. It must be savored, not gulped down like your English tea," the Count was saying, his voice a melodic purr. He traced a finger along the edge of her robe, eliciting a delighted shiver from her. Lady Clarissa laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. "Vittorio, you are incorrigible. But Reginald, he watches like a hawk. Last night at the casino I thought he might explode." The Count shrugged, his smile flashing white against his olive skin. "Let him explode. What is life without risk? Come, let us walk to the caves. The whispers there, they tell of lovers' secrets." As they rose, linking arms, Poirot cleared his throat politely. "Pardon, madame, monsieur. I intrude not intentionally. The dunes, they fascinate me." Lady Clarissa started, her hand flying to her throat, but she recovered with a gracious smile. "Monsieur Poirot, how delightful! We met briefly last evening, did we not? This is Count Rossi, Vittorio, the famous detective Hercule Poirot." The Count bowed with exaggerated courtesy, though his eyes narrowed slightly. "An honor, monsieur. Your reputation precedes you like a fine cologne, but surely you are not detecting on holiday." Poirot chuckled, twirling his mustache. "Ah, the little gray cells, they never truly rest. But today I am merely an admirer of beauty, the sea, the sand, and yes, the company." He gestured toward the caves. "These whispers, one imagines they conceal much." "Indeed," Lady Clarissa said, her tone light but with an undercurrent of nervousness. "They say the caves hold echoes of ancient shipwrecks and lost treasures. Vittorio was just promising to show me." Before the Count could respond, a heavy footfall sounded from the path above. Sir Reginald Hargrove appeared, descending with the lumbering gait of a man fueled by indignation. His face was beet red, beads of sweat glistening on his brow despite the mild morning. He carried a walking stick, which he brandished like a weapon. Trailing a few paces behind was Miss Evelyn Sharp, her briefcase clutched tightly, her expression one of resigned anxiety. "Clarissa," Sir Reginald bellowed, his voice cutting through the whispers like a foghorn. "What the devil is this? Cavorting with this gigolo before noon?" Lady Clarissa detached herself from the Count, her chin lifting defiantly. "Reginald, really, we were merely chatting. Monsieur Poirot is here as well. Hardly a scandal." Sir Reginald's eyes bulged as he took in the scene. "Chatting? With his paws all over you? I've had enough of this nonsense." He turned to the Count, jabbing a finger. "You, sir, are a parasite, preying on married women for their husbands' fortunes. Well, mark my words, I'll see you ruined." The Count straightened, his charm evaporating into cold hauteur. "Sir Reginald, your accusations are as crude as your manners. I am a gentleman, you are a boor. If you continue, I shall demand satisfaction." Poirot stepped forward, his voice calm and authoritative. "Messieurs, madame, let us not spoil the serenity of this place. Anger, it is like the wind here. It stirs the sands but reveals nothing useful." Sir Reginald snorted, ignoring Poirot. "And you, Clarissa, think you're clever? I'll cut you out of everything. The will, it's being redrawn as we speak. No more allowances for your frivolities." Miss Sharp, hovering at the edge, interjected softly. "Sir Reginald, perhaps we should return to the hotel. There are documents requiring your signature." He wheeled on her. "Quiet, Evelyn. This is family business." But his bluster seemed to deflate slightly, and he mopped his forehead with a handkerchief. At that moment, Dr. Felix Laurent emerged from a nearby path, his medical bag slung over one shoulder. He was dressed in a light tweed suit, a Panama hat perched on his silver hair, and he approached with the measured stride of a man accustomed to crises. "Good morning, all," he said smoothly, his accent a polished Parisian lilt. "I couldn't help overhearing the commotion. Sir Reginald, you look unwell. Your color is high. Might I suggest a sedative? I have something mild in my bag. It would calm the nerves without impairing the faculties." Sir Reginald glared. "Sedative? I'm not some invalid. Keep your potions, doctor. I need no help from quacks." He turned back to his wife. "We're leaving. Now." With that, he seized Lady Clarissa's arm, none too gently, and marched her toward the hotel path. She cast a longing glance back at the Count, who watched with clenched fists. Miss Sharp followed, her steps hurried to keep pace, the briefcase bumping against her hip. Dr. Laurent lingered, exchanging a knowing look with Poirot. "A tempestuous household," the doctor remarked dryly. "Jealousy is a potent toxin, monsieur. It poisons the mind before the body." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "Oui, doctor, and in such an idyll one expects harmony. Yet the whispers, they hint at discord." As the group dispersed, Poirot resumed his walk, his mind whirring. The confrontation had been raw, exposing fractures. Sir Reginald's possessiveness, Lady Clarissa's restlessness, the Count's opportunism. Miss Sharp's role intrigued him. More than a mere secretary, perhaps a confidant or guardian of secrets. And Dr. Laurent, appearing so opportunely with his remedies, what was his stake in this drama? By midday, Poirot returned to the hotel, the sun now beating down with insistence. In the cool lobby, a telegram awaited Sir Reginald at the front desk. The industrialist, still fuming in the lounge with a brandy in hand, tore it open impatiently. His face darkened further as he read. Then he crumpled the paper and hurled it into a nearby ashtray. Poirot, seated discreetly with a newspaper, observed this. Feigning casual interest, he retrieved the discarded missive when Sir Reginald stormed off. Smoothing it out, he read, "Beware betrayal. The sands will swallow your secrets. Anonymous." "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his green eyes narrowing. "The plot, it thickens. Who sends such warnings, and why now?" He pocketed the telegram, deciding to ponder it later. The dunes' whispers had been mere prelude. Now, human voices added their ominous notes. Lunch beckoned, a light sole meunière. But Poirot's appetite was tempered by curiosity. In Monaco, it seemed, even the wind carried intrigue. The afternoon passed in relative quiet. Poirot napped briefly, then ventured to the hotel's library, where he perused a volume on local folklore. Tales of smugglers' caves and drowned sailors fueled his imagination. By evening, as guests gathered for aperitifs on the terrace, the earlier storm appeared forgotten. Lady Clarissa appeared radiant in a sapphire gown, chatting animatedly with other ladies. Sir Reginald brooded over cards with business acquaintances. The Count lounged at the bar, nursing a martini. Miss Sharp typed correspondence in a corner alcove. Dr. Laurent read a medical journal, occasionally glancing up. Yet Poirot sensed undercurrents. A glance exchanged between Lady Clarissa and the Count, a furtive whisper from Miss Sharp to her employer, Dr. Laurent's hand straying to his bag. The pieces, Poirot thought, they assemble themselves. But to what picture? As dusk fell, painting the sky in lavender and rose, Poirot retired to his balcony. The whispers from the dunes rose faintly, a lullaby laced with warning. Tomorrow, he resolved, he would probe deeper. For now, the Côte d'Azur's allure masked shadows that even the sun could not dispel. Chapter 3. The Fatal Hour. As the sun climbed toward its zenith, bathing the Côte d'Azur in a relentless golden haze, Hercule Poirot found himself drawn once more to the hotel's terrace. The events of the morning lingered in his mind like the faint aftertaste of a bitter herb. He had observed much: the heated exchange on the dunes, the anonymous telegram's cryptic threat, the subtle interplay of personalities that suggested deeper currents beneath the surface, calm. Seated at a wicker table with a fresh pot of tisane, he watched the guests mill about, his green eyes missing nothing. Lady Clarissa Hargrove descended the steps from the hotel, her parasol twirling idly as she made her way toward the beach path. She appeared composed, though a slight furrow in her brow betrayed inner turmoil. Not long after, Count Vittorio Rossi sauntered out, his gaze following her retreating figure before he veered toward the casino entrance, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Sir Reginald, meanwhile, remained ensconced in the lounge, poring over newspapers with Miss Evelyn Sharp at his side, her fingers flying across a portable typewriter as she transcribed his dictations. Dr. Felix Laurent emerged from the gardens, his medical bag in hand, and paused to converse with Monsieur Duval at the reception desk. Their words were inaudible from Poirot's vantage, but the doctor's gestures suggested a request, perhaps for directions or information. Poirot sipped his infusion, the mint leaves releasing their soothing aroma. "The stage is set," he murmured to himself. "But for what act?" The afternoon unfolded with deceptive languor. Guests lunched on the terrace, lobster salads and chilled chablis, accompanied by the distant crash of waves. Poirot partook lightly, engaging in polite conversation with a dowager countess about the virtues of Belgian chocolate. Yet his attention wandered to the Hargrove party, seated at a nearby table. Sir Reginald dominated the discourse, railing against continental laxity and business ethics, while Lady Clarissa toyed with her food, her eyes occasionally meeting the Count's from across the way. Miss Sharp ate in silence, her briefcase propped against her chair like a faithful sentinel. Dr. Laurent dined alone, his fork moving with precise, almost surgical motions. By 3 o'clock, the heat had driven most indoors for siesta. Poirot, resistant to such indulgences, opted for a shaded promenade along the upper cliffs. From there, he could survey the whispering dunes below, a ribbon of sand now dotted with only a few hardy sunbathers. Sir Reginald, defying the temperature, had ventured out earlier, declaring his intent for a solitary walk to clear his head. Miss Sharp had accompanied him partway, handing over documents before returning to the hotel. Lady Clarissa, pleading a headache, retired to her suite. The Count vanished into the casino's cool interiors. Dr. Laurent mentioned a consultation in Monte Carlo and departed in a taxi. Twilight approached subtly, the sky shifting from azure to amber as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Poirot, having returned to his balcony, noted the changing light with appreciation. It was then that the scream shattered the peace, a high, piercing cry that echoed from the dunes, carrying up the cliffs like a siren's wail. Guests stirred, murmurs rippled through the hotel. Poirot rose swiftly, his cane in hand, and hastened downstairs. In the lobby, chaos reigned in miniature. Monsieur Duval wrung his hands as staff buzzed about. The source of the alarm was Lady Clarissa, who staggered in from the beach path, her face ashen, her robe disheveled and dusted with sand. "Reginald," she gasped, collapsing into a chair. Oh God, he's dead, on the dunes, near the caves." A hubbub ensued. The manager summoned the authorities. Guests clustered, whispering speculations. Poirot approached gently. "Madame, compose yourself. What has occurred?" She looked up, her eyes wide with horror. "I went for a walk, to think. The dunes were empty. Then, by the largest cave, I saw him, sprawled with a dagger in his chest, blood everywhere. The sand. It's shifting over him already." Poirot nodded gravely. "Remain here, madame. I shall investigate." Accompanied by Duval and a pair of hotel porters, Poirot descended to the beach. The light was fading, casting long shadows that danced with the wind. The whispering dunes lived up to their name. The murmurs from the caves seemed amplified, a chorus of lament. They found the body near the mouth of a yawning cavern, half buried in drifting sand. Sir Reginald Hargrove lay on his back, his eyes staring blankly at the sky, his shirt front stained crimson around a protruding hilt, an ornate dagger, its blade embedded deep. Poirot knelt carefully, his handkerchief protecting his knees. "Do not touch," he cautioned the others. The weapon was distinctive, a curved Moroccan blade, encrusted with jewels that glinted dully in the twilight. No immediate signs of struggle marked the scene. Footprints crisscrossed the sand, but the incoming tide and wind had blurred them into indistinction. A few meters away, a discarded walking stick, Sir Reginald's, lay partially submerged. Within minutes, Inspector Leclerc of the Monegasque police arrived, a wiry man with a clipped mustache and a no-nonsense air, flanked by 2 gendarmes. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, recognizing the detective. "A pleasure, though under grim circumstances. You are a guest here?" "Oui, Inspector, and if you permit, an observer. The victim is known to me, superficially." Leclerc surveyed the scene. Apparent stabbing. Time of death? Dr. Laurent, who had returned from Monte Carlo just in time to be summoned, knelt beside the body for examination. Between 5 and 6, I'd wager. Rigor not yet set. But wait, there's more. He probed gently around the wound. The skin around the entry is discolored, bluish tint, and his lips, cyanotic. Poison, perhaps. Curare, if I had to guess, paralyzes the victim instantly. The stab might be superfluous. Poirot's eyebrows rose. Curare? A South American toxin, no? Rare in these parts. Laurent nodded. Indeed, applied to the blade, likely. Death would be swift, respiratory failure. The inspector barked orders. Cordon the area, photograph the scene. As gendarmes set to work, Poirot examined the dagger more closely without disturbing it. This weapon, it is not common. From Sir Reginald's collection, perhaps? He was a traveler and collector of exotics. Lady Clarissa, escorted down under guard, confirmed it tearfully. Yes, he brought it from Tangier years ago, kept it in our villa safe. How did it get here? Alibis were hastily gathered. Lady Clarissa claimed a spa treatment at the hotel from 4 to 6, verifiable by staff. Count Rossi produced casino receipts, gambling steadily until the scream. Miss Sharp had been in her room typing letters. A maid confirmed delivering tea at 5:30. Dr. Laurent presented a patient's note from Monte Carlo, timed at 5:15. Yet discrepancies nagged. Footprints, though faded, suggested multiple visitors to the cave. One set small and feminine, another broader. In the victim's clenched fist, a scrap of paper, torn with ink, smudges. Poirot pocketed it discreetly for later scrutiny. And on Sir Reginald's shoe, a peculiar grain of sand clung, not the coarse local variety, but finer, almost powdery, with a crystalline sheen. As the body was covered and removed, the group trudged back to the hotel under gathering stars. Inspector Leclerc lit a Gauloise. Motives abound, jealousy, inheritance, secrets. We'll question everyone tomorrow. Poirot walked in silence, his mind a whirlwind. The fatal hour had struck, transforming holiday idyll into tragedy. The whispers from the dunes now seemed mocking, as if echoing the killer's footsteps. Poison and blade, he pondered, a method both exotic and certain. Who among them possesses such knowledge and such ruthlessness? Back in his suite, Poirot unfolded the scrap, fragments of a note in elegant script. Meet me at the cave, urgent, C. Lady Clarissa's initial, or a forgery? He placed it beside the anonymous telegram. Patterns emerged, tantalizingly incomplete. Sleep would elude him tonight. The little gray cells demanded vigilance. The Mediterranean lapped eternally below, indifferent to human folly. But Poirot knew. Truth, like the tide, would eventually reveal all. Chapter 4. The little gray cells stir. The morning after the discovery of Sir Reginald Hargrove's body dawned with a deceptive brightness, the sun gilding the Mediterranean in sheets of molten gold. Yet a pall hung over the Hôtel des Dunes Dorées, as if the whispers from the dunes had infiltrated the very walls. Guests spoke in subdued tones over breakfast, casting sidelong glances at the cordoned beach below, where gendarmes still patrolled the crime scene. Hercule Poirot, impeccably attired in a dove-gray suit despite the warmth, had risen early. He partook of his customary café complete in the dining room, his mustache twitching as he contemplated the events of the previous evening. Inspector Leclerc had granted Poirot unofficial latitude to assist, recognizing the Belgian's legendary acumen. Monsieur Poirot, the inspector had said over cognac the night before. "Your insights could prove invaluable, but remember, this is Monaco. Discretion is paramount." Poirot had inclined his head. "Discretion, oui, but truth, it demands revelation." Now in the hotel's opulent salon, a room adorned with Louis XV furniture, crystal vases of fresh lilies, and heavy velvet drapes, Poirot had requested a gathering of the principal persons involved. The air was thick with tension as they assembled. Lady Clarissa, her beauty marred by dark circles under her eyes, clad in somber black. Count Vittorio Rossi, lounging with affected nonchalance in an armchair, though his fingers drummed restlessly. Miss Evelyn Sharp, perched on the edge of a settee, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, and Dr. Felix Laurent, standing by the window with his arms crossed, his expression a mask of professional detachment. Inspector Leclerc observed from a corner, notebook in hand, while a gendarme guarded the door. Poirot stood before the marble fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back, his green eyes gleaming like polished emeralds. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice precise and resonant. "We confront a murder most ingenious. Sir Reginald Hargrove, a man of wealth and temper, met his end on the Whispering Dunes between 5 and 6 yesterday afternoon. He dined alone in his suite at 4, oysters and champagne, as the waiter attests, then ventured to the beach, ostensibly for solitude. Yet someone lured him to that fatal cave. Who? And with what purpose? The method, curare to paralyze, followed by a stab from his own Moroccan dagger. A blend of science and savagery. We shall uncover the truth through order and method. He turned first to Lady Clarissa, who sat with a handkerchief pressed to her lips. "Madame Hargrove, you discovered the body, but let us speak of your relations with the deceased. Arguments, non? Over your friendships?" She lowered the handkerchief, her voice trembling. "Yes, Monsieur Poirot. Reginald was jealous, terribly so. He accused me of indiscretions with Vittorio. We quarreled often. But murder? Never. I loved him once, you know. And now, the will. He was rewriting it, disinheriting me entirely because of the Count. Everything to charities or distant relatives. He told me so yesterday morning, in a rage." Poirot nodded sympathetically. "And your alibi, the spa. The attendant confirms you arrived at 4:30 and left at 6. Impeccable. Yet the note in his hand. Meet me at the cave. Urgent. C. Your initial, madame?" Her eyes widened. "I wrote no such thing. It must be a forgery, to implicate me." "Possible," Poirot conceded. "We shall see." Next he addressed Count Rossi, who met his gaze with a smirk. "Monsieur le Comte, your affections for Lady Clarissa are evident. Sir Reginald threatened you. Motive for elimination, perhaps?" The Count lit a cigarette with deliberate slowness, exhaling a plume of smoke. "Motive? Bah, I am not a pauper begging for scraps. Yesterday I was at baccarat from 3 until the alarm, won 5,000 francs, as the croupier will vouch. Why kill for an inheritance I never sought? Clarissa's charm is a lure enough, without her husband's fortune." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Charm? Oui. But debts? Rumors whisper of your gambling losses in Rome. A wealthy widow might alleviate such burdens." Rossi's smirk faltered. "Rumors are cheap, monsieur. I deny nothing, and everything." Turning to Miss Sharp, Poirot softened his tone. "Mademoiselle, you served Sir Reginald faithfully, yet your demeanor suggests burdens unspoken. He feared blackmail, non? Tell us of this." She adjusted her spectacles, her pallor accentuating the freckles on her nose. Yes, he confided in me. Threats arrived weeks ago. Anonymous letters about a scandal in Tangier. Opium smuggling during his trading days. He swore innocence, but the letters demanded payment or exposure. He was terrified, his reputation, his knighthood at stake. Yesterday, that telegram, it unnerved him further. And your role? Poirot pressed. You handled his documents. The will. Did you type the revisions? She nodded hesitantly. Partial drafts. He dictated changes, but nothing finalized. I urged him to consult the police, but he refused. Stubborn man. Dr. Laurent cleared his throat impatiently. This is all conjecture. What of the poison? Curare, not a layman's tool. Poirot pivoted smoothly. Ah, Dr. Laurent, you treated Sir Reginald for heart ailments. Digitalis prescribed, yet he refused it yesterday. Why? Laurent shrugged. He complained of palpitations. Digitalis stabilizes the rhythm. But he was obstinate, claimed it made him drowsy. I offered a sedative on the dunes, as you recall, but he declined. Poirot stepped closer. And curare? A doctor's acquaintance, surely, used in surgery for muscle relaxation, or in higher doses for death. Your expeditions to Algeria, did they not include studies of exotic toxins? Laurent's composure cracked. A bead of sweat traced his temple. Research, yes, but I am a healer, not an assassin. My alibi. The patient in Monte Carlo. Verified. For now, Poirot murmured. But alibis, they can crumble like sand. The gathering dispersed under Leclerc's watchful eye, the suspects retreating to their rooms with varying degrees of unease. Poirot, however, was not idle. He conferred briefly with the inspector, sharing observations. The crystalline sand on the victim's shoe, alien to the local quartz. The blurred footprints suggesting a scuffle masked by wind. The dagger's hilt wiped clean of prints. As night fell, the hotel quieted, save for the distant murmur of waves. Poirot, feigning retirement, slipped out via a side door, cloaked in shadow. Accompanied only by a flashlight, he made his way to the whispering dunes. The caves loomed like black maws, the whispers amplified in the darkness, a sibilant symphony that could indeed drown footsteps or cries. He entered the largest cavern, the beam of light dancing over damp walls etched with ancient graffiti. Methodical search, he whispered, scanning the ground. Near the spot where the body had lain, he noted indentations, perhaps from knees. Climbing a narrow ledge within the cave, his fingers brushed something soft. A glove, ladies' kid leather, monogrammed E.S. in elegant script. Miss Sharp's? He pocketed it carefully. Emerging, Poirot paused, the wind tousling his hair. The crystalline sand, perhaps from a boot sole, carried from afar. And the curare, accessible to a physician, but how administered? Injection, likely, before the stab, explaining the paralysis. Back in his suite, Poirot arranged his findings on the desk. The glove, the telegram, the torn note. George, ever vigilant, prepared a nightcap. A productive evening, sir? Oui, George, the little gray cells, they stir. Motives entwine, like vines. Jealousy, blackmail, inheritance, professional ruin. But one thread pulls taut. He pondered deep into the night, the pieces shifting in his mind like a mosaic. Lady Clarissa's denial rang true, yet her initial on the note troubled. The Count's alibi held, but his opportunism reeked. Miss Sharp's glove, planted or lost, and Laurent, with his toxins and timely absences. Dawn's light filtered through the curtains as Poirot finally reclined. Tomorrow, he resolved, more questions. The killer believes the whispers conceal all, but Hercule Poirot listens beyond the wind. The hotel stirred to life, unaware that the detective's net was tightening. Clues accumulated, each a step toward revelation in this sunlit web of deceit. Chapter 5. Threads of Deception. Dawn broke over Monaco with a crisp clarity, the early light piercing the hotel's curtains like inquisitive fingers. Hercule Poirot, having snatched only a few hours of fitful rest, rose with determination. The glove he had discovered in the cave weighed heavily in his pocket, a tangible link in the chain of evidence. Over a light breakfast of fruit and yogurt, his digestion demanded caution amid stress. He reviewed his notes, the precise handwriting, cataloging discrepancies and suspicions. Inspector Leclerc joined him in the salon shortly after, nursing a strong espresso. "Monsieur Poirot, your nocturnal excursion yielded fruit? The glove. Miss Sharp's, you say?" Poirot nodded, producing the item with a flourish. Monogrammed E.S. and found on a ledge, as if concealed hastily. We must confront her. But first, the telegram. Traced yet? The inspector puffed on his pipe. "Oui, sent from a post office in Monte Carlo yesterday morning. The clerk recalls a woman in a veiled hat paying in cash. No clear description. Average height, gloved hands." "Gloved?" Poirot echoed thoughtfully. "To avoid prints, perhaps. And the handwriting, feminine script?" Leclerc shrugged. "Cursive, elegant, could be anyone's with practice." Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of the suspects for further questioning, arranged in the same salon under gendarme supervision. The room felt smaller now, the lilies wilting slightly, as if oppressed by the atmosphere. Lady Clarissa entered first, her black morning dress accentuating her pallor. She seated herself gracefully, though her fingers twisted a lace handkerchief. "Madame," Poirot began gently, "your footprints were noted near the cave, small, like those of a lady's slipper. Yet you claim discovery only after the deed." She met his gaze steadily. "I walked the dunes earlier, yes, around 4, before my spa appointment, to clear my mind after Reginald's outburst. But I returned directly. Ask the doorman. He saw me enter." The doorman, summoned, corroborated. Lady Clarissa had indeed re-entered at 4:20, disheveled from wind but composed. Poirot filed this away. "And the note with C, a clever forgery to point to you?" "Undoubtedly," she replied. "Someone wishes me blamed. Vittorio. He has enemies, jealous rivals. Or perhaps Evelyn. She's always resented me." Miss Sharp, entering next, blanched at the sight of her glove in Poirot's hand. It's mine. Lost days ago, on a walk. How did you find it?" "In the cave, mademoiselle," Poirot said softly. "Concealed. You followed Sir Reginald yesterday?" She collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. "Oh, God. Yes, I did. He summoned me at 4:30, slipped a note under my door. 'Meet at the dunes. Urgent business.' I went, briefcase in hand. He was furious about the blackmail letters, accused me of complicity, said I'd framed him in Tangier to cover my own involvement. We argued. He grabbed my arm. I pushed him away in fear. He stumbled, fell against the rock, but alive. I fled, dropping the glove. When I looked back, he was rising, cursing." Poirot leaned forward. "And the dagger? The poison?" "No. He had no wound then, I swear. He fell on sand, not blade. Someone came after." Her story held a ring of truth, but inconsistencies loomed. The stab wound was upward, deliberate, not from a fall, and curare required preparation. Poirot dismissed her gently, turning to forensic reports Leclerc had procured overnight. The hypodermic needle, unearthed by the storm's erosion near the cave, bore traces of curare. No fingerprints, but a faint residue of surgical glove powder. Count Rossi sauntered in, his earlier smirk replaced by wariness. "Monsieur Poirot, this inquisition grows tiresome. My alibi, ironclad." "Almost," Poirot corrected. "The croupier recalls you absent for 20 minutes around 5:15. Borrowing a phone, you claimed, but the casino logs show no calls from that extension." Rossi hesitated, then sighed. "Very well. I stepped out for a cigarette, and to meet a contact. Debts, as you hinted. A moneylender from Nice. He can vouch." The contact, telephoned, confirmed a brief rendezvous in the alley. But 20 minutes? Enough time to slip to the dunes via a back path. Poirot probed further. "And your knowledge of poisons? Italian nobility hunting with natives in colonies?" Rossi laughed bitterly. "Arrows tipped with curare? Romantic notion. I've read of it, nothing more." Dr. Laurent was last, his demeanor cool as he adjusted his cufflinks. "Accusations fly, monsieur. My bag. Searched yet?" Leclerc nodded. "A vial missing, labeled curare. Empty slot." Laurent's eyes flickered. "Stolen, perhaps. I use it rarely. For experiments on nerve agents. Last checked 2 days ago." "And your boots," Poirot interjected. "From Algerian treks. The sand on Sir Reginald's shoe. Crystalline, like desert quartz from the Sahara. Not local." Laurent paled. "Coincidence. I've walked the dunes daily." But a search of his room yielded boots caked with the distinctive grains. Poirot pressed. "You treated him for heart issues. Digitalis. Overdosed. It mimics curare symptoms. But no, you chose exotic means." "Why?" "I deny it," Laurent protested. "Sir Reginald consulted me about the blackmail, hinted at exposing my imports, medical supplies from abroad, some unregulated, but not murder." The pieces shifted. Poirot excused him, conferring with Leclerc. Lady Clarissa's affair masked her own schemes. Letters revealed she blackmailed the Count over gambling debts, using Reginald's money. Rossi's absence hid not murder, but a desperate plea for funds. Sharp's glove, planted to divert suspicion. A torn will fragment, found in Sir Reginald's wastebasket, named Miss Sharp, heir to a modest sum. Enough for motive, if desperate. But her push seemed genuine accident. As afternoon waned, Poirot wandered the gardens, piecing the puzzle. The killer. Knowledgeable in poisons, access to the dagger, stolen from the villa, motive tied to secrets. Laurent's imports, drugs, perhaps illegal narcotics disguised as medicine. Sir Reginald's Tangier scandal linked to opium. Laurent's Algerian ties to hashish routes. A breakthrough. The veiled woman at the post office, described with a limp. Miss Sharp walked evenly. Lady Clarissa gracefully. But Laurent, his medical bag often carried awkwardly, as if compensating. No, rethink. The clerk mentioned a feminine voice. Disguise? Poirot requested hotel records, a call from Laurent's room to a Tangier associate day before. Blackmail origins? Threads wove tighter. The storm had revealed the needle, wind erased tracks, but human error left traces, sand, glove, vial. By evening, suspects dined separately, the salon empty save for Poirot's contemplation. "Deception unravels," he murmured. "One more day, and the net closes." The dunes whispered outside, indifferent to the revelations brewing. Chapter 6. The sands shift. The azure skies of the Côte d'Azur, so often a canvas of unblemished serenity, darkened ominously as midday approached. Hercule Poirot, gazing from his balcony at the Hôtel des Dunes Dorées, noted the gathering clouds with a mixture of apprehension and intrigue. The wind had picked up, whipping the palm fronds into a frenzy and carrying the salty promise of rain. "A storm brews," he murmured to George, who was meticulously pressing his master's handkerchiefs. "And with it, perhaps, revelations. Nature, she conspires with the little gray cells." By early afternoon, the tempest unleashed its fury. Thunder rolled like distant artillery, and sheets of rain lashed the cliffs, transforming the whispering dunes into a sodden, shifting morass. Guests huddled indoors, the hotel's lounges filled with the hum of enforced idleness, card games, murmured conversations, and the clink of teacups. Poirot, undeterred by the deluge, donned a mackintosh and ventured out with Inspector Leclerc, who had arrived bearing preliminary laboratory reports. "The curare on the dagger. Confirmed," Leclerc announced as they sheltered under an awning, rain pattering relentlessly on the canvas. "Pure extract, likely from a medical source. And the needle you mentioned? The gendarmes found it this morning, unearthed by the downpour near the cave entrance, buried shallowly, as if discarded in haste." Poirot's eyes sparkled. "Excellent. Residue? Curare traces, oui. No prints, washed clean by sand and now rain. But the gauge matches surgical standards." They proceeded to the beach, where the dunes had been reshaped by the gale. Rivulets carved furrows in the sand, exposing shells and debris long hidden. The cave mouth gaped wider, its whispers now a roar amplified by the wind. Poirot, with the inspector's aid, recreated the crime scene as best the weather allowed. He positioned a gendarme as Sir Reginald, imagining the sequence. The victim, lured by the forged note in a hand mimicking Lady Clarissa's elegant script, arriving expectant. The killer, concealed in shadow, approaching from behind, perhaps with a pretense of aid. The injection, swift and silent, into the neck or arm, paralyzing the lungs and limbs in moments. Then, as the man collapsed, the dagger thrust upward into the chest for absolute certainty. The dunes' murmurs, drowned by the storm's howl today but gentle yesterday, would have masked any final gasps. "Precision," Poirot declared, wiping rain from his mustache. The killer planned for the acoustics, the whispers as accomplice, no struggle, no cries to alert passers-by. Back at the hotel, dried and fortified with hot chocolate, Poirot delved into the red herrings that had clouded the investigation. Lady Clarissa's affair with Count Rossi, so flagrantly displayed, had seemed a prime motive. Jealousy fueling murder. Yet deeper inquiry revealed layers. Correspondence seized from her suite showed she had been subtly blackmailing the Count over his mounting debts in Italian casinos. "Small loans," she confessed when confronted in private, her composure cracking. "From Reginald's accounts, Vittorio promised repayment but delayed. I pressed him. Nothing sinister, merely security." The Count's absence from the casino? Not a murderous detour, but a clandestine meeting with a paramour from Monte Carlo, a married socialite whose alibi corroborated his tale. "A tryst, monsieur," Rossi admitted with a wry smile. "Discreet, you understand. Not the dunes, but a cafe nearby. Miss Sharp's glove? That damning clue?" "Planted," Poirot deduced. Her push on Sir Reginald had been real, an act of desperation amid their quarrel, but non-lethal. The glove, retrieved from her room's laundry by a stealthy hand, placed in the cave to implicate her. "Who?" she whispered, trembling. "Someone who knew my habits." The crystalline sand provided the pivot. Analysis confirmed its origin, not the local beaches, but the fine, quartz-laden dunes of the Algerian Sahara. remnants from Dr. Laurent's recent expeditions. Collecting samples for botanical research, he had claimed earlier. But hotel staff recalled him shaking out his boots in the garden, scattering telltale grains. Motive crystallized as Poirot cross-referenced Sir Reginald's papers. The industrialist, in his Tangier dealings, had stumbled upon evidence of illicit trade. Pharmaceuticals smuggled under the guise of legitimate medical imports. Dr. Laurent's sideline. Importing controlled substances like opiates and exotic toxins from South America via North African routes, disguised in his shipments. Sir Reginald, fearing his own scandal exposed, had confronted Laurent privately 2 days prior, threatening disclosure to authorities. He laughed it off, a overheard conversation revealed, but his eyes, cold as steel. Laurent's composure unraveled under renewed questioning in the salon. The room, dimmed by storm clouds, felt oppressive as Poirot laid out the evidence. The missing vial from his bag, the needle's match to his kit, the Sands betrayal. "You forged the note, Doctor. Your hand steady from years of prescriptions. Lured him as a patient seeking relief. Injected the curare, your research sample, then stabbed with the stolen dagger to suggest passion's crime. The whispers concealed. The tide and wind your erasers." Laurent stood abruptly, his face ashen. "Preposterous. I was in Monte Carlo. A patient who recalls you rushed, departing early. Time enough to return via side roads." The doctor bolted then, shoving past the gendarme and fleeing into the rain-slicked corridors. Shouts echoed. Pursuit ensued. Poirot remained seated, calmly sipping tisane. He heads for the harbor, escape by yacht perhaps. Indeed, gendarmes intercepted Laurent at the Monaco marina, where he was frantically unmooring a rented vessel. Dragged back, sodden and defiant, he spat confessions in the inspector's office. Hargrove discovered the imports, curare from Brazil, opium derivatives. He demanded a cut, the hypocrite, threatened to ruin me. I silenced him. The perfect toxin, untraceable if not for that damned sand. As handcuffs secured, Laurent's veneer shattered. The dunes, they whispered my downfall. The storm abated by evening, the skies clearing to reveal a tapestry of stars. Poirot, reflecting in his suite, marveled at the shifts. Sands moved by wind, truths by persistence. Loose ends tied. The veiled telegram sender, a hired errand girl from Monte Carlo, paid by Laurent in disguise. Miss Sharp exonerated, her inheritance secure. Lady Clarissa and the Count, chastened, parted ways amid whispers of scandal. Order restored, Poirot told George, who nodded sagely. Yet the detective knew. In human hearts, new tempests always brewed. The whispering dunes fell silent once more, their secrets buried anew. Chapter 7. The Denouement. As the first rays of dawn pierced the lingering clouds over Monaco, the Hôtel des Dunes Dorées stirred to life with a subdued energy, the storm's aftermath leaving the air fresh and charged. Hercule Poirot, having orchestrated the final gathering, stood in the salon's center, the room bathed in the soft glow of flickering candles that Monsieur Duval had lit to combat the early chill. The chandeliers above remained dimmed, casting elongated shadows that mirrored the elongated truths about to unfold. The suspects assembled once more. Lady Clarissa, her elegance restored but eyes shadowed by uncertainty. Count Vittorio Rossi, cigarette in hand, his posture a blend of defiance and resignation. Miss Evelyn Sharp, clutching a notebook as if it were a talisman, and Dr. Felix Laurent, now under gendarme escort, his silver hair disheveled, his once suave features etched with defeat. Inspector Leclerc positioned himself by the door, arms folded, while two officers flanked the exits. The atmosphere was thick, the only sounds the distant lap of waves and the occasional creak of furniture. Poirot, his patent leather shoes gleaming, his mustache impeccably waxed, cleared his throat with theatrical precision. "Mesdames et messieurs," he intoned, his voice a measured cadence that commanded attention. "We arrive at the denouement. The murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove, a crime of calculation veiled by the whispers of the dunes, shall now be laid bare. Through order and method, the little gray cells have prevailed." He paced slowly, his ebony cane tapping rhythmically on the parquet floor. "Let us reconstruct. Sir Reginald, tormented by blackmail over his Tangier indiscretions, received an anonymous telegram. Beware betrayal. The sands will swallow your secrets. This was no idle threat, but a lure sent from Monte Carlo by a veiled figure, hired, we now know, by the killer to unsettle him further. That afternoon, a forged note in a hand resembling Lady Clarissa's summoned him to the cave. "Meet me. Urgent. C." He went, expecting confrontation or reconciliation. Poirot paused before Lady Clarissa, who met his gaze with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Madame, your affair with the Count provided a convenient smokescreen. Your blackmail of him over debts, subtle yet effective, added complexity. But you are innocent of murder. Your footprints from an earlier walk, your solid spa alibi, they absolve you." She exhaled audibly, her shoulders relaxing. Thank God. But who then? The detective turned to Count Rossi. "Monsieur le Comte, your opportunism and secretive rendezvous painted you as suspect, yet your tryst in Monte Carlo, confirmed, places you elsewhere. You sought funds, not blood." Rossi stubbed out his cigarette, a faint smile playing on his lips. "As I maintained, charm has its limits." Poirot's eyes shifted to Miss Sharp. "Mademoiselle, your quarrel with Sir Reginald, the push, the lost glove, they implicated you deeply. The glove, planted in the cave to divert suspicion. Your motive, the Tangier scandal, where he scapegoated you, but your flight left him alive, merely bruised. The killer arrived moments later." She nodded tearfully. "I knew it. I felt watched. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot." Finally, Poirot faced Dr. Laurent, who glared back, with cornered ferocity. "Ah, doctor, you, the healer turned harbinger of death, your sideline, importing illicit substances, curare among them via Algerian routes, faced exposure. Sir Reginald, piecing together your medical shipments with his own past dealings, confronted you. He demanded silence or tribute. You chose elimination." Laurent sneered. "Conjecture, no proof." "Proof abounds," Poirot interjected sharply. "The crystalline Saharan sand on his shoe, from your boots, shaken in the garden but clinging stubbornly. The missing vial from your bag, the surgical needle discarded hastily, its gauge matching your kit. You stole the dagger from the Hargrove Villa safe. Access gained under pretext of a house call. The injection, swift, paralyzing him mid-breath. Then the stab, upward and precise, to mimic a crime of passion. The dune's whispers drowned his final moments. The tide blurred your tracks. The doctor lunged forward, restrained by gendarmes. He was a parasite, blackmailing me over trifles, opium traces in my cargo. I offered digitalis for his heart. He mocked me. In the cave, I promised relief, a sedative. He turned. I struck with the needle. The dagger, insurance. Poirot nodded gravely. Oui. And the forged note, your script, practiced from prescriptions. The telegram intermediary, paid anonymously but traced through your Monte Carlo patient logs. You departed early, time enough for the errand. Laurent sagged, defiance crumbling. The sands. They betrayed me. As handcuffs clicked definitively, Lady Clarissa swooned dramatically into a chaise, fanned by a maid. Rossi lit another cigarette, exhaling contemplatively. Sharp wept quietly, relief mingling with sorrow. Inspector Leclerc stepped forward, clapping Poirot on the shoulder. "Masterful, monsieur. Monaco owes you gratitude." Poirot inclined his head modestly. "It is the truth that triumphs. Human nature, greed, fear, deception. It weaves the web, but logic untangles it." The group dispersed. Laurent to custody, the others to pack amid whispers of departure. Poirot retired to his suite, where George awaited with a steaming tisane. "A satisfying conclusion, sir?" "Oui, George. The little gray cells rest easy." From the balcony, the whispering dunes gleamed under clearing skies, their murmurs now benign, guarding no more malice. The Côte d'Azur resumed its allure, but Poirot knew. Mysteries, like tides, would return. For now, repose, and perhaps a sirop de grenadine at the casino.